Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, also known as the Continuum Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Chris Kent, and today we're going to be talking about Thor and Beowulf. But before we get into that, smash that like button, ring the bell so you know when I upload stuff, and make sure you're subscribed. We've got a great community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We played this adventure all the way back in 2007 after seeing the Beowulf movie in the theater. And I think that we might be the only people on earth who actually liked that movie. And at any rate, as you'll see here shortly, we borrowed pretty heavily from parts of it. At any rate, without any further ado, let's dive in. The epilogue to this one takes place in Heorot, the legendary Great Hall of a king named Hrothgar. These lands have been plagued by a strange being named Grendel, and Dagda, who the locals here now refer to by the nickname of Beowulf, is summoned to slay Grendel. Beowulf, by the way, literally translates as Beowulf, which is their word for a bear, and Dagda was literally as big as a bear, so this is a pretty fitting nickname. While Beowulf is staying here as their guest of honor, a warrior by the name of Unferth says he doesn't think Beowulf is up to the task. Beowulf says that while it is true that he used to be far more powerful than he is now, he did have a run-in with a demon named Zarathos, and now he's almost mortal. Almost. But Beowulf says he'll still do the best he can to slay their giant. Unferth says Beowulf lost a race to a guy named Brecca, and Beowulf's men come to his defense, saying that while that is technically true, the only reason he lost the race was because they all encountered 9 sea monsters and had to slay them all. Unferth says he thinks they're liars, and Beowulf says Unferth can think whatever he wants, but when Grendel shows up here, Unferth will see the outcome with his own eyes. After that, everyone drinks, and despite being less powerful, our hero is still quite the ladies' man. So he enjoys a group of very enthusiastic blonde maidens. After cavorting, shall we say, they all go to sleep. So while sleeping under a pile of animal skins in his birthday suit with these fair maidens, the Great Hall is attacked by the giant known as Grendel. Grendel busts down the door, grabs one of Beowulf's men, and throws him into a support beam holding up the Great Hall. He does this with enough force to crush the man in one blow. Another man charges Grendel, and Grendel impales him with his own spear. Another one charges, and Grendel eats his head. Beowulf sees Grendel and thinks he looks an awful lot like the Fomorian giants that he used to fight back in his Dagda years back in Ireland. But in the Germanic area, these giants are known by the name Vril, and they are a hybrid of humans and demon parents. So Beowulf starts telling Grendel how many of his kind he's killed over the years. But Grendel says in like a weird gurgly voice, I don't have a kind. And with that, Grendel leaps up into the air, bringing his foot down in an effort to crush Beowulf. But he misses. Grendel stomps on the wooden table Beowulf was on, and it acts like a seesaw. Beowulf is launched up into the rafters, where he makes a dex check, grabs a round wooden rafter, and vaults off of it like an Olympic gymnast onto Grendel's back. Beowulf's war cry vibrates a weird sack that protrudes from Grendel's left ear. Grendel, by the way, seems to be riddled with birth defects, and this is one of them. Grendel drops everything to hold his ear in pain. Then he grabs for Beowulf, who punches him in the ear sac, rupturing it. Bile spews forth, and Grendel is brought to his knees. Grendel tries to leave the hall, only for Beowulf to ensnare him with a chain from the chandelier. Beowulf then slams the huge door of the great hall on Grendel until it severs his arm. Grendel is bleeding out. He screams until he runs towards the lake. Unferth apologizes for underestimating Beowulf earlier. Beowulf says it's all right and heads out into the night to hunt Grendel down and finish him off. Beowulf follows the trail of blood to a cave where Grendel's beautiful mother lives. She's a demon, and she tries to seduce Beowulf. Beowulf has a pretty low opinion of demons ever since the Zarathos incident in Rome. A bunch of other adventurers have come here to kill Grendel's mother, but she killed all of them. Their gear is still here, though, in the treasure pile, including a sword that Dungeons and Dragons would refer to as a Holy Avenger. It's sort of like the metallic equivalent of holy water. So that said, Beowulf uses it on her, and it works. Having killed Grendel and his mother, Beowulf is celebrated as a hero. And that brings us to the main plot of today's adventure, which takes place 50 years later. Beowulf is now king of the Yeats and has been celebrated as a kind and just ruler. But one day, an adventurer finds the lair of a dragon and steals an item from its hoard. This angers the dragon, and it starts to fly around the countryside, burning everything in sight, which gets the attention of Thor. As a brief aside, there's something I should mention. For those familiar with Marvel Comics, you may recall that Thor had an attitude problem. His father Odin was upset about this and sent him to 20th century Earth to correct that attitude problem. And as previously stated, this adventure takes place before the 20th century. So this Thor is kind of a prick. That said, Thor now goes to King Beowulf and says he heard that Beowulf used to be Dagda, and as such, he wants to fight him. The king politely declines, saying they have bigger fish to fry. But Thor's heard tales of how Dagda defeated Hercules in Rome, killed an army of giants, so on and so forth. So Thor punches Dagda through a wooden wall. Something else I should probably explain is that in our game, uh, the game is way older than the MCU. And for that matter, Chris Hemsworth was literally a 2-year-old when we played our first adventure. So our Thor was never based on Chris Hemsworth. When we started playing in 1985, only one man came to mind when we imagined someone Germanic with blondish hair and huge muscles, and that was Arnold Schwarzenegger. So when you see Thor calling Beowulf a girly man or something like that, you know where we're coming from. While we're explaining our version of Thor, I should also probably say that we converted his stats from Marvel Superheroes by TSR into stats for DC Heroes by Mayfair. So his unearthly fighting becomes the martial arts skill in the 13 to 15 range. Excellent agility equals dexterity in the 5 to 6 range. Monstrous strength becomes a strength of 12 APs. Monstrous endurance becomes a body of 12 APs. Good reason is an intelligence in the 5 to 6 range. Good intuition is a mind of 4. Remarkable psyche is willpower in the 7 to 8 range. Thor's excellent resistance to physical attacks, heat, cold, radiation, toxins, aging, and disease would equal 5 APs in DC Heroes. Typical resistance to other energy attacks is 3 APs. Mjolnir is a class 3000 material strength item that would have a body in the 25 to 27 AP range. Thor's fighting is Shift X when using Mjolnir, which would translate to a weaponry skill in the 16 to 18 range. Mjolnir's lightning is monstrous, which is 12 APs. At any rate, you get the idea, right? So Thor's strength of 12 versus Beowulf's diminished body of 6 APs means that Beowulf would normally take 7 points of damage from being punched through a wooden wall. But Thor isn't trying to kill him, he's just trying to have fun. So this is only knockout damage. So Beowulf's body is 0 for a while. And Thor, by the way, is super disappointed and says lots of what we refer to as Arnoldisms. Like, you're such a girly man. Get up, fight me, here I am, all that stuff. Really fun to play that. At any rate, so eventually Beowulf wakes up and he has a body of 1 now. Thor basically insults Beowulf and says he's old and pathetic. And Beowulf doesn't really argue that point much, by the way. So we see that Beowulf really is not happy with his life now. Beowulf asks if Thor is happy now that he punched out the guy who beat Hercules. And Thor pouts and says, "No, this is bullshit." And Beowulf says if Thor wants a decent fight, he's going to have to slay that dragon. Thor is annoyed that Beowulf isn't more of a challenge, but does say that the dragon is why he came here in the first place. So they team up and they go after the dragon. For the dragon, by the way, we used Fin Fang Foom's stats from Marvel Superheroes by TSR. So we had amazing fighting, which is in the 9 to 10 range. Remarkable agility would be in the 7 to 8 range. Unearthly strength is a 12. Shift X endurance, by the way, is a body in the 13 to 15 range. And last but not least, he's immune to electricity. So they go to fight the dragon, and an overconfident Thor hits it with a 12 AP lightning bolt, which does nothing. Because, like we just said, the dragon is immune to electrical attacks. So Thor is shocked by this, no pun intended, and the dragon hits Thor, doing 3 damage. So Thor's body drops from 12 to 9. For the dragon's final automatic action, it roars. On Beowulf's turn, Beowulf leaps into the dragon's mouth feet first, sliding down his throat. Since the dragon's as big as a barn, this isn't hard to do. And Beowulf slides down the throat using his weapon on the inside of the dragon, which does not receive the skin armor bonus that the outside of the dragon gets. So damage done in the throat comes straight out of the dragon's hit points, bypassing its damage resistance. Beowulf's men, by the way, think that Beowulf just died. So most of them run away, except for a young man named Welof, who finds a weak point and hits it in an attempt to bypass the dragon's skin armor. On Thor's turn, Thor smacks it with the hammer. But Thor needs to roll a 13 or better before he starts to do damage, and he doesn't roll that high. So Thor smacks the dragon to no avail. The dragon is focused on Thor now as the main threat, so it attacks him again, doing another 3 points of damage. So Thor's body is now 6. Inside the dragon, Beowulf substitutes his martial artist of 10 APs for how hard he can strike. And he rolls a 15, doing 2 points of damage. So the dragon's body is now 11. Thor rolls an 18 on 2d10, doing 6 damage. The dragon's body drops to 5. The dragon misses Thor on his turn. Beowulf hits, but does no damage on the inside. Thor rolls a 15, doing 4 points of damage. The dragon's body is 1. The dragon rolls a 15, doing 4 damage to Thor. Thor's body drops to 2. Beowulf hits, doing 2 points of damage, and the dragon's body drops to -1. The dragon is knocked out. After that, Beowulf and Thor finish it off with ease. Beowulf cuts his way out of the dragon's throat. Welof asks if Beowulf's all right. Thor looks at Beowulf, waiting to see what he will say. Beowulf tells Welof that he's covered in dragon venom and has been poisoned, which is not true. And he tells Welof to wrap him in a blanket so once he's dead, they can move his body without getting poison on them. Welof does this, and Beowulf pretends to die. Welof runs off to tell the others what happened, and Beowulf unwraps himself and makes what is basically a scarecrow, which he then wraps in the blanket. When Welof comes back with some of the men who'd run away, Thor places the scarecrow wrapped in the blanket on a boat, pushes it out into the water, and then sets it on fire with a bolt of lightning. Everyone here mourns King Beowulf, who's actually watching all of this from a distance. Then we get into the epilogue. Beowulf becomes king because he's the only one who didn't run away from the dragon. Thor and Beowulf attend the ceremony wearing hooded cloaks so no one will recognize them. After that, they hit the road, and Thor asks why Beowulf gave it all up. Beowulf says because he wasn't happy here anymore. It's time to move on. Maybe a fresh change of scenery will help. Thor says Beowulf is depressed because he isn't a god anymore. And Thor says he doesn't know what he would do if he ever got trapped in the body of a mere mortal. Then he turns to Beowulf and says, "No offense." Beowulf says it's fine. And Thor invites him to journey to the world of Asgard with him. Beowulf politely turns down the offer, though, since Thor is still a jerk in this era. So Thor says it's Beowulf's loss. Then he promises he'll see him again someday. And with that, Thor crosses the Rainbow Bridge back to the planet Asgard. Beowulf heads towards England, where the locals there will call him by the name Arthur. But that's a story for another day. We had a good time playing this one. We hope you had a good time listening to it. So smash that like button, ring the bell so you know when I upload stuff. Make sure you're subscribed and leave us a comment, as that really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.